Hi everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the second half of January and the new supermoon that we have in Aquarius coming up on the 21st. Now, I'm filming this on the 4th, and just be aware that that full moon in Cancer that I spoke about in the last video, that is exact on the 6th, is very much aspecting the chart for the US. So we may see a lot of activity and news coming out of the US during this period, and particularly because it's in the context of the Pluto return for the US as well. But I'm going to be talking here about the second half of January, which really starts to pick up in energy. The momentum really increases, and there's some very specific reasons for that, which I'll come on to. But again, just echoing what I was saying in themes for 2023, this is a watershed year. This really is a turning point for humanity, as I said. And by the end of 2023, we are going to be in a very different place to where we are right now at the beginning. We are going to see a lot of revelation and disclosure. We're going to see a lot of crumbling of the old order and potentially chaos at that 3D level, the systems collapse. That is all part of the evolutionary plan, and that is repeated historically, particularly the movements of Pluto moving out at the end of Capricorn into Aquarius, which is where we are right now. Those patterns have repeated reliably, and it's very clear to see how they're playing out right now. But again, I'll get into more detail about that as we move through this video. So energy is stronger in the second half of January. I think I mentioned in the last video that we have Eris in Aries, sister of Mars, warrior goddess, moving stationary direct on the 11th, and the very next day, Mars himself moves stationary direct also in Gemini. So the few days around the 11th and 12th are going to be feisty days. They're both warrior energy in their different ways, both quite warlike, if you like. And particularly remember that Mars is technically out of bounds beyond the normal 23 degrees north or south of the ecliptic that we normally see for orbits of planets, and therefore it tends to express in a more extreme and out of control way. And also the fact that Jupiter is moving through Aries, ruled by Mars, the sign of the warrior. We have quite a lot of aggressive, assertive energy in the world right now. Now, this is brilliant for initiating projects, really driving things forward, but stay in peace. Stay in peace in your own personal world, because if all of us do that, that will diffuse any excessive aggressive energy in the world. It will certainly help to do that. We all have enormous power as individuals and the collective to change the trajectory of particular timelines that appear to be coming up. So just remember how powerful we are. We also have on the 14th of the month, we have 14th of January, we have the Sun square to Eris, and on the 18th, the Sun conjuncts Pluto. Now, the Sun comes to conjunct Pluto once a year, but it does very much, with Pluto being the planet of power, it very much raises issues around power, all kinds of power, governmental power, psychological power, financial power, personal power. How have you used your power in your life and in the world, or not? Do you need to rebalance that? You need to become a little stronger in how you use your power. But remember, Pluto is always best expressed altruistically for the good of all, not just for self. Then the transits tend to manifest much more positively. But so around about the 18th, we could see some power plays in the world, some assertions of power to raise that issue. On the 18th, we have Mercury moving direct at 8 of Capricorn, and on the 22nd of the month, just literally a few hours after the new supermoon I'm going to be sharing with you and talking about in this video, Uranus on the 22nd moves stationary direct at pretty much 15 degrees of Taurus. So a few days around the 22nd in particular, because this new supermoon is very, very powerful too, we could see Uranian expression in the world. And as you know, this is a kind of sudden bolts of lightning, discontinuous energy. This can be literal earthquakes, volcanoes. It can be political ones, financial ones. It can be shocking, sudden events. It's very linked to truth coming out, getting more clarity. So some or all of those manifestations may occur few days to either side of the 22nd, and in particular because Uranus is the ruler of the new supermoon in Aquarius. It rules the sign of Aquarius. So rebellious behavior, it's the sign of the rebel, it's the sign of the maverick, it's the sign of the revolutionary. Particularly if truth is being disclosed, people may have different views to that. And I think we'll see a lot of that round about the new supermoon as well. So all planets, as I say, are going to be moving direct from the 22nd. And this gives until early May. Pluto then starts to move retrograde in the first couple of days of May. But until then, we have all of the planets moving direct. And that's fairly rare, actually. So there's this sense of paciness, momentum, acceleration, particularly because Jupiter is in Aries. That's a very speedy sign, wants to get things done quickly. There's an impatience, come on, let's get the show on the road. So we are likely to see a pickup in the pace of events, because really for the last 3 years, it may have felt pretty stuck, pretty gridlocked. Saturn, Pluto through 20 and 2021, lockdown. That was pretty tight control. Even with the Saturn-Uranus square through 21 and 22, although there have been a great many uprisings, protests, demonstrations across the world, nevertheless, there's been a feeling that things haven't really moved ahead as fast as we may wish. But that's going to change this year. It is going to be a pacey, very eventful year. So let me share with you the chart for the new supermoon. So here we go. As always, I set this for England, for London, because this is where I live. So ignore the clock face, ignore the houses in the chart, and simply look at where the planets fall and their aspects to each other. So this is a supermoon, which means that the moon is very close to the Earth in its orbit. And that increases the power of this new moon, the strength of the symbolism that we're going to be looking at. It also can suggest seismic activity because the moon's pull is greater, if you like, on the Earth because it's so close. This will be happening at 12:53 p.m. Pacific and 8:53 p.m. UK time. This is at 1 degree 32 minutes of Aquarius. Remember, sun and moon always come together at a new moon. This is the third new moon in a row of 5 at 1 degree of the sign that they are appearing in. So, you know, this is multi-layered. The number of layers in the astrological picture suggesting the new episode, and this is yet again another signal of a new beginning. So see where this falls in your chart, 132 of Aquarius. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website, go to the link below, and you can get a 2-part video series from my store to take you from zero to help you understand what every update I offered to you means for you in your life. You can kind of identify where these new moons, full moons, eclipses fall for you and what that means. So Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and I've already said that Uranus is about to go stationary direct within hours of this new supermoon. It's just within 4 minutes of 15 degrees of Taurus. For astrologers, remember that 15 degrees of the fixed signs, because it's always 45 degrees from zero of the cardinals, is also on the world axis within a very tight 2-degree orb, by the way, very tight orb. But what that means is that whatever symbolism is prevailing here that I'm going to explain to you is more likely to be on the public stage in some way. We have first of all, we have 5 planets in fixed signs. We have 4 in Aquarius, which is a fixed sign, and we have Uranus in Taurus, fixed sign. 5 planets in fixed signs. So there's a lot of determination here, but there's also a lot of fixity, intractability, perhaps, or very much sticking to your very strong views on one side of the fence or the other of whatever issue. We also have 5 planets in air. We have 4 in Aquarius, which is air, and Mars in Gemini is air. So 5 in air. So 5 in fixed, 5 in air. So again, that suggests fixity of view, fixity of opinion. And those views may be coming out very strongly on social media, because both signs, Gemini and Aquarius, are linked to social media. We have an out-of-sign conjunction here between Pluto and the Sun and Moon, the new moon. So even though we only have 1 planet in water, in a water sign, which is Neptune in Pisces, whenever we have Pluto conjunct the moon in particular, or in hard aspect to the moon, we have potentially a lot of emotional intensity, even if they're not in water signs themselves. So what is that emotional intensity likely to be about? Well, because Pluto's really in the last couple of degrees of Capricorn, and Pluto was represented top-down control, top-down power, and all the things we're aware of in the last 3 years, whereas Aquarius is much more to do with freedom, truth, sovereignty, autonomy, the future, independence, etc. Those are going to be the issues, really. It's almost like an intense replay of the Saturn-Uranus square, control versus freedom, past versus future, etc. So this is what we're going to be feeling strongly again. And it's so interesting that, of course, if we look historically, Pluto has a 246 to 248-year orbit. And if we look at the times in history as Pluto has been moving through the last few degrees of Capricorn, in each case, whether it's the power of the church or the power of an autocratic monarch, or in this case, perhaps very strong government, institutions, corporations, the grip of power has typically become stronger and louder as Pluto moves through the last few degrees. But equally, always historically, there is therefore a boomerang effect as Pluto starts to move into Aquarius, which it does in March. There's a kind of, enough. We want to take our freedom back. But what is very interesting about this new supermoon in Aquarius is Pluto isn't quite there yet. It's going to start moving in on the 23rd of March. And so this is the very first glimpse with this new supermoon in Aquarius that we're going to get of how those themes are likely to play out once Pluto starts to move into Aquarius in a bigger way. Now, it's only going to be from 23rd of March till the 11th of June. That's all the only time it's going to be in Aquarius this year. But next January 2024, it moves into Aquarius in a bigger way, and it spends 9 months of the year in Aquarius versus 9 months in Capricorn this year. 9 months in Aquarius, fully moving in December 24 and staying there for 20 years. Till 2044. So we are going to get the very first glimpses of how these themes are going to play out. So be very observant. Remember, we're co-creators. We don't just receive this astrological energy, we weave our future with it. And also be very aware that Pluto is moving very, very close to what is called the anaretic degree. The last degree of any sign is known as the anaretic degree. So it moves into 29 of Capricorn on the 11th of February. And it is hovering around 29 of Capricorn for a lot of the second half of 2023. So just know this, because this is the kind of last chance, if you like, the last chance saloon, if you like, for top-down structures that have traditionally held power over us in our lifetimes. So therefore, the old world is likely to get louder, much louder, potentially, but also, if we understand the astrology, more hollow. I want to say that more. I said that in the themes for 2023, more hollow, because we know the historical picture of how this works. The direction of travel is towards the new. Very, very, very clear, in multiple ways, layers of ways. So just observe. You don't have to get caught up in the drama. That's one of the many wonderful things about astrology, is it gives us this bigger picture, this historical perspective of how the historical cycles typically play out. And so I think that is extremely interesting. But also Pluto is likely in these last couple of degrees, particularly this year, to dig up any remaining lack of transparency, lack of accountability, lack of integrity in those top-down structures. I've said that many times before, and it will really be doing that to the last degree, because it hasn't got long to go. 9 months in Capricorn this year, 3 months in Capricorn next year, then it's a done deal for about 200 and going on 40 years. So know that that is where we are headed. We're headed towards the new. Now, what is also very interesting is that this new supermoon at 1 degree 32 of Aquarius is within 1 degree. This is more for astrologers, really, within 1 degree, obviously, of 0 of Aquarius, which is where at the Capricorn solstice in December 2020, we had what is known as the Great Conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. The conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn happens reliably every 20 years, like clockwork. But what it does is repeat in the same element for about 200 years. So it had spent the last 200 years repeating in Earth. So the zeitgeist of the time, if you like, the social and political zeitgeist of the time, was very earthy, heavy, materialistic, heavy industry, fossil fuels, that kind of thing. Home for life, bricks and mortar, long-term job ownership, long-term job occupancy, long-term home ownership, defined by your title, your wealth, because that was set up. This political and social background, zeitgeist, is set up by that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Now it's moving into air. It moved into air at the end of 2020. But what is interesting here is that because Pluto is going to be hovering back and forwards, end of Capricorn, beginning of Aquarius, end of Capricorn, beginning of Aquarius, it will cross that 0 of Aquarius, which has already been activated by the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction 5 times. So we are going to get a real kind of galvanizing effect that this is a new episode for humanity. And those Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions repeat in air for about another 140 years, I think it is. So, absolutely the rest of our lives. But it's emphasizing this sense of endings of the old order, beginning of the new, endings of the old order, beginning of the new. Now, with this Aquarius energy, we also, it's always a bit paradoxical in that we get a stronger sense of our own unique purpose, our role in these evolutionary times, but equally how we can make a unique contribution to the community, to humanity. What is our special role that we can offer to the world? So be very aware of how that's developing, all the signs and signals here. You may well get signs and signals around this new supermoon, because it's a new beginning, it's a new message, it's a new impetus. Don't forget to set a new intention. This is planting a new seed in the area of your chart where 1 degree of Aquarius falls. We also have, very positively, I think it's drawn in here, we have Jupiter at 4 of Aries in a sextile, positive aspect to the sun and moon. And this brings in expansion of all those Aquarian things I've talked about, freedom, truth, sovereignty. There's always a sense of justice with Jupiter, because it rules the law. In its rulership of Sagittarius, it rules truth and it rules the law. In Aries, we could even have some military justice perhaps coming in. I think that will certainly occur this year. We may get some glimmers of that around this new supermoon, but very much about justice. I've just squeezed in Manwe here. Manwe, I've talked quite a lot about, dwarf planet. Manwe at 2951 of Pisces is within 9 minutes of 0 of Aries, the very, very beginning of the zodiac. And because Manwe has a 289-year orbit, it is very, very positive for us that Manwe is at that brand new point, as it were, that brand new start of 0 degrees of Aries, very first degree of the zodiac. I always want to call it the creator degree. Manwe, as you will have heard me say in myth, with his wife Vada, created the cosmos, highest archangel closest to the mind of God, highest source of divine intelligence, always brings the triumph of light in the world, and is dedicated to world renewal. So that symbolism is remarkable, given where we are in our evolution of humanity, and given it's going to be exactly at 0 of Aries as all these new beginnings are happening for us. Remember, this is a really pivotal year. If we take the 20 years from 2012 to 2032, we've done the first half. We've gone over the pivot of the seesaw, really just almost in the last few days, you could say. And now we are technically into that second decade, which is going to be pretty pacey. But from now on, it's about building. Don't look back at the demolition. Just focus on what you're building. And if you don't know what you're building, just think of love, joy, gratitude, appreciation, staying in peace. If you are feeling those positive emotions, you are going to be helping to build new earth. It's that simple. It's really that simple. But what I think is very special about the Kuiper Belt objects, some of which are dwarf planets that I'm talking about here, are that they, and all the ones I've investigated, and we've got many more to go, but the ones I've investigated have a sense of the sacred. They have a sense of the divine. This divine aspect, this divine intelligence that is all through nature in absolutely everything. Trees, animals, birds, crystals, rocks, everything, light, everything. This sense of the sacred, which we have lost in our modern lives, dare I say, that is one of the major aspects of this higher octave of consciousness, which the Kuiper Belt objects, the dwarf planets, are bringing in for us, or helping us to remember. That is so. Think of the sacred. Think of the divine connection to nature in the way that the ancient peoples understood it. We're going to be going back to those, because what these dwarf planets remind us of is that those ancient shamanic connections, but also there's a kind of leading edge quantum aspect to them in terms of how we can now manifest with our greater understanding of physics and evolution. Another aspect that's important to talk about in this little grouping here is Salacia at 6 of Aries, which is conjunct Jupiter. Salacia in myth was the wife of Neptune. She's linked to the shimmering moonlight and sunlight on the sea. To me, she is very much the representative of photonic light. And remember that photonic light isn't just light, it's a form of plasma. So because it's a form of plasma, it carries with it divine intelligence. It isn't just light like we switch on a light bulb. It's plasma photonic light. And this is what we are absorbing in our systems with these extra surges of photonic light coming in. Remember, I said recently that we are light bodies. All of our cells are just made up of biophotons, which carry information, and that's how the intracellular network works. And so Salacia is a very big signal to us of this evolutionary power of divine intelligence that arrives to us in the form of light, photonic light. I think that's really exciting. The other exciting thing that hasn't quite landed with me yet, but I can feel it's kind of in process, is that Salacia seems to be linked to seawater because she was the wife of Neptune, and Neptune's lord of the sea. And seawater is salty, obviously, and salt water can take an electrical charge. I mean, we have salt water in us, our tears are salty. And this, Veda Austin's work that I talked about last time, this kind of triggered this in me, that there's something around. I know that some theories of evolution are about the fact that salt water can take an electrical charge, and the very earliest forms of life, one particular theory of evolution is that the electrical charge of the seawater allowed very primitive amoeba to start to be born and developed on beaches, and went on from there. But there's something about salt water taking electrical charge, and that we ourselves are liquid crystals, if you like, that feels very important. I don't think it hasn't landed with me yet, so I'm not articulating that very well, but I'm sure it'll land quite soon. Okay, so everything is energy and frequency that we're going to understand going forwards. The other important, before I get to Kwawa, the other important thing to say is we have a very exact quincunx by degree, 150-degree aspect between Mars at 8 of Gemini and Mercury at 8 of Capricorn. Now, remember what I was saying about Mars at 8 of Gemini being conjunct the US Uranus, which is a very kind of explosive conjunction there for the US. There's going to be so much happening in the US, I think, coming up. And don't just think that that's pertinent to the US. That's going to ripple across the world, whatever is unfolding at this time. So this is interesting because this really suggests a lot of mental activity and possibly even agitation. Because Mars, we know, energizes whatever sign it's in. So it's energizing Gemini, which is the sign of the mind and communication. It's also one of the signs, as I say, of social media. It's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is in this kind of agitating quincunx to Mars in Gemini. This suggests a lot of mental churn, just a lot of agitation and churn and activity. Also the fact that it's actually a trine between Mars, quite a wide trine, Mars and the Sun and Moon. Again, there's activation. It's an air sign, Aquarius. Activation around social media. There's a lot happening. Ideas, opinions, very much in the head. Air tends to be very much heady. So be aware of that and just step back from the noise. Know that's going to be happening. Going to be clashes about he said, she said, what you believe, what they believe. It's all polarity and duality. So try and stay on your eagle's perch and step back from that. And another beautiful dwarf planet, Kwawa, here at 7 of Capricorn, is in a very tight conjunction to Mercury. Now Kwawa in myth always rises above the chaos, rises above the noise and the hubbub, because in the myth of Kwawa, linked to the Tongva people, the original inhabitants around the Los Angeles basin, they realized they could never manifest from chaos and get a beautiful manifestation. They had to raise their frequency through song and dance, and having raised their frequency, they then set a clear intention to manifest. But they did it in community. One of the big aspects of the archetype of Kwawa is about community. And isn't that interesting? Because it links so clearly to the Aquarian themes of community. Super important as we move forwards. Now, just the other thing before we move on is we also have a very tight conjunction here between Venus and Saturn. And if this falls 23, 24 of Aquarius, if this falls in your 5th house or your 7th house of relationships, this can suggest some control in the relationship coming in, or some realism, reality check, pragmatism that feels less romantic, but you've got to kind of make sure that this relationship is an honest expression of you, otherwise it's not going to hang together. The other way this could manifest is this could be another development because Venus is linked to money and currency, and Aquarius is digital, and Saturn is government and control. There could be another development of central bank digital currencies coming up at this time as well. So those are the important aspects, I think, for the new supermoon. And as we get sort of further on into the month, yeah, I think I've stopped sharing there. As we get further into the month, the 23rd of the month, we have Mars in exact semi-square to Eris, feisty energy again. The moon is also square Mars on that day. On the 27th, we have this repeating aspect of the moon coming to conjunct Eris and square Pluto. Now, it does that repeatedly, but nevertheless, these are feisty days. And remember that this new supermoon, ruled by Uranus very strong, Uranus moving stationary direct within hours of this, Uranus on the world axis, 15 of the fixed. We are going to be moving beyond the stuckness which we've experienced and recognize what massive evolutionary times we are in. So our ascension is inevitable. The only thing really is how fast do we get there? And that's where we as co-creators play our part. Now, if you can just stay in those positive expressions of love, joy, gratitude, appreciation, peace, you'll be accelerating New Earth. That's all you have to do. You don't even have to know the detail of where we're headed. But if you go into fear, you will be slowing up the progress of New Earth to arrive for yourself and arrive for the collective. So just know this is a kind of social responsibility of this Aquarian energy. Just know you are an accelerant, a catalyst, or a slower upper, a ball and chain on our progress. Ascension is going to happen anyway. But the variable is the speed with which it happens, and that's where we as co-creators have a very, very, very important role to play. And again, step back, think of yourself in the future looking back on these massively historic times. Are you going to be proud of the role you played? You're going to be proud of the role you played. Just stay out of fear. That's almost the one thing I'd suggest to you. So rise above the noise. Now, one analogy that occurred to me is actually as I was waking up this morning. It's the image of an egg, a regular, normal hen's egg. And the egg itself, the boundary of the egg shell, if you like, is very linked to Saturn, because Saturn rules boundaries and barriers, and it rules skin, bones, teeth, and skin, because our skin is the boundary of our body, if you like. So therefore it rules eggshells. And know that because we had that important Saturn-Pluto conjunction right at the beginning of 2020, and Pluto has been in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, we've had a lot around tight structure, increasingly tightening structure. So this egg, this normal chicken egg, suddenly struck me as being a very strong symbol for all that we've experienced, particularly over the last 3 years. And some of us may feel that we've been looking at that egg for about 3 years, thinking, not much happening here. The astrology is suggesting that there's a lot happening, and indeed there is, but the egg's still there. But this year, right now, I would say, we're getting the cracks as the new chick, starts to crack its way out of that eggshell. And I think this is for me, it was a great analogy of this shift from Capricorn to Aquarius. Because all of the energy within that egg has gone to make that new chick. that evolutionary jump to the new chick. You know, all of the nutrients, the goodness inside that egg have been feeding the day that that chick starts to emerge as a living being in the world and starts to break open from the old structure. The old structure has now had its day. It's had its evolutionary purpose in hatching that new chick, but now it's just crumbled away. It has no more evolutionary purpose. And I got very excited about this as I was waking up this morning. It has no longer any evolutionary purpose as we're making this shift astrologically, cosmologically, in a massive evolutionary way. So all of the energy, the astrological energy, is moving towards new life and the new chick. So you could think of that new chick breaking out of its old shell where nothing appeared to be happening, but actually there was a huge amount happening of birthing new life. We just didn't see it until the shell really started to crack. And that's really what I'm trying to communicate. I think that not much appeared to be visible, but there was a heck of a lot. This was birthing a whole new life. But we couldn't see it for ourselves at this 3D tangible level until the chick started to break out of the shell. And then we could see all that had been happening within the egg while the tiny chick had been growing. Hope I'm making sense here. So I hope that you could say in a nutshell or even an eggshell is a very good symbol for 2023. So if you're listening to this, you could define yourself as a young chick of new earth, because if we are digesting this kind of material, we are most certainly focused on the new, on the future, on our evolution as humanity, which is just massive. So I hope that's made sense for you. I hope it's been helpful for you. And if you'd like more information about my books, my videos, my long monthly newsletter, just check out my website. Again, just to say, I'm receiving an absolutely immense number of emails. I just can't read them all now. I try and read them and couldn't reply to all of them, so don't take that personally. I just can't read them. There's just such a huge number. So please be aware of that. I'm only human and one small person, so but I do my best as far as I'm able. But God bless. Thank you for listening to this, and I hope you have a wonderful new supermoon in Aquarius on the 21st of January. I'll be back very soon. Bye for now.